What I'm considering doing is, the Talbot Express is not a winterised van. In other words, the insulation's not very good on it. And but what I've done, when I've removed panels, I've added extra insulation to make it warmer. But the water tank underneath the van is one of the most exposed areas in terms of freezing. And a while back I purchased a temperature controller, which is very low cost, and some heat pads. I can't remember why I purchased them. It was for another project, I think. But what I'm considering doing is using this simple controller to have like a frost ice setting to stop the tank, drinking water tank, from freezing underneath the van. And the intention is to make a sandwich plate of metal so that it goes underneath the fresh water tank and generates enough heat to protect it from freezing. Now, I'm not sure whether it'll work or not, so I'm going to do some tests first with these heater pads. And the controller here, the controller can be set by programming it with just the up and down buttons to switch the heater on when it's cold and switch off when it's warm. And you can set the temperature in degrees centigrade, or you can use it for cooling. You can use it, you can just with those two buttons you can make it so it switches a cooling fan on, or switching a heating element on, or switching element off. It's a very simple controller. It's a 12-volt controller. I can't remember the spec. I might have it on the back. Yes. It'll switch up to 120 watts. And it goes from -50 to 110 degrees C, and it's a 12-volt version. And all it has is 12-volt in, 12-volt out. And then it has a temperature sensor, which is on the lead's a bit short, but you can't really extend it. And then I've purchased these two heat pads. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to connect it up and let it run to see how hot these get, because I don't want it to melt the plastic, with the tank itself. And the intention is if it works, is to put it on a sheet of metal and sandwich it between the water tank and the supporting section of wood that's slung beneath the tank. And then I can have a controller and just set it to a frost setting. Heat pads are now attached to a sheet of metal, and I'm going to cover it in an aluminium foil tape, and I'm carrying on doing some tests. The aluminium foil has been attached. Now this is the heat pad, whatever you like to call it, anti-frost, anti-freezing heater plate to go between the tank and the wooden support. And I can connect it two ways. If I connect these in parallel, it gives 36 watts. If I connect them in series, which I can do, the heat is obviously still equally balanced, but it reduces it down to about 12-15 watts. Now with them in parallel, it gets up to about 50 degrees C, possibly more. And when it's in series, this panel gets up to about 25 degrees. I don't want to melt the plastic of the tank, and that's in free air, so I think have them in series, it gives reduced current drain from the battery, and I think that should be enough, because it only needs a little bit of residual heat under the tank, I think, for it to stop it freezing. But until the winter comes, I won't be able to do any real tests. but I will sandwich it between the tank and the wood, and then I'll show you that when it's all together as a mock-up in the garden. This is the temperature controller I'm planning on using for the heat pad under the tank, and I can set the temperature at which it comes on and it goes off, and it's got a temperature sensor on it. The only problem with it is, even when it's hot weather and the heating elements are switched out, this still consumes power. So this will consume power all the time, you know, because it'll be permanently connected to a power source. Now, because it's got a display, it takes current, and also if it's powered down and it's switched back on, it goes to a default setting which puts the heater on, which I don't want that to happen because I don't want it to drain my battery. So I'm considering buying what's called a frost stat, and you can buy those for domestic use, and I'm going to look at the cost of them, and they're mechanical contact, and basically, you know, they don't consume any power at all apart from when they switch the heating in, and then it's only the elements. So that's what I'm going to investigate, is to try and look for a more mechanical thermostat or frost stat and fit that on the van rather than this sophisticated temperature controller which will consume power all the time. And remember, in the winter, you know, there's very little sun around for the solar panels, so if I'm off grid for any length of time, I don't want this taking power all the time, and if I switch it off, I've got to go back and reset all the settings.